Welcome to the Awakened Goddess Show, your source for inspiration, wisdom, and personal discovery. The place to learn from a diverse mix of mentors, metaphysical experts, spiritual leaders, and best-selling authors from around the world. I'm your host, Angela Wilkinson. Join me as I explore the minds of my masterful guests while they share powerful insights and easy-to-use tools you can start using right away. Now, let's tap into the energy of the Awakened Goddess and be enlightened by today's guest. Helygen is a priestess of Avalon and Cerridwen, an Aweneth, a wise woman, a druidic healer, as well as a soul reader and midwife. She's an experienced ceremonialist and celebrant who works both in the Glastonbury Temple and Goddess Healing House as a priestess and healer. As a professional course developer, she works with universities across Britain. She creates and teaches workshops, as well as conducts tours and retreats to ancient sites on her sacred land, both in Avalon and in Wales. In 2015, Bee created a priestess course for the goddess Cerridwen, the Dark Mother and Queen of the underworld of the Avalonian Wheel. After a pilot year, the course was granted temple teaching status and now runs annually under the aegis of the Goddess Temple. Bee has trained as a priestess of Avalon and an emotional healer with Kathy Jones, visioner of the Glastonbury Goddess Temple, and she applies these teachings in her daily healing sessions in the Goddess House. Now let's welcome Bee to the show. Hi, I'm Angela Wilkinson, and welcome to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show, where we co-create powerful, conscious conversations on the leading edge. Today I have a very special guest joining me. Her name is Bee, and I'm really excited to talk with her today because we're going to talk all about goddesses and what it's like being a priestess in Avalon. So welcome, Bee.
Hi, welcome, Angela. How are you today?
I'm fantastic. So, okay. First off, you live right near the Tor, is that correct?
I know, yes, absolutely. You know, our house actually looks out on the Tor, so it's brilliant. It's, we can tell what the weather's going to be like whether you can see the Tor or not.
Yes.
If you can't see the Tor, it's going to be a bad day.
Oh no, yeah. So those that are watching and listening, we probably should bring them up to speed. I was in Glastonbury, England. It was October of last year, 2017. And so that's why I bring up the Tor, because I visited the Tor and the Goddess Temple, and that's how I connected with your work. And so I'm really excited to talk about your journey into becoming a priestess and working with Goddess Cerridwen. So yeah, let's go back. I want to hear, like, what was the catalyst? Because, it seems to be that we need to have a catalyst or something that connects us to the goddess before she shows up in our life. So what was that for you?
Well, actually, that's a long, long time back. My granddad was the person that took us into the woods. He was a socialist. He didn't have any religious faith, but he was very closely connected to the nature. He was from Spain, and he used to take us out at night because he used to say that that's the best time in the world to see nature is at night, because a lot of the animals come out, and and it's the energy is different to a woodland at night. And then I used to love the moon, used to hang out at night in the moonlight, even when I was little, to the point where I used to get locked into my room because I would constantly be moon gazing. And, even when I was about 6 years of age. So, I was not always popular with my father, who had to get up and bring me back in at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, but I've always, I've always known that there was something more, that there was a force and energy in the world that was undescribed, unnamed, but it was there, and it was drawing me. It was calling to me. So that was my first foray into unknown territories.
Yes. And your life's work is really with Goddess Cerridwen. So how did you connect with her? Because she's a very powerful goddess.
Incredibly so. And she is also one that calls you. And when she calls you, there is no ignoring her. She knocks on your door, on your consciousness. She wakes you up at 3 o'clock in the morning to give you some messages for people. And you're like, Cerridwen, I'm sleeping. And she's like, you can sleep when you're dead. So, so I moved to Wales. I've been, pagan for 25 years, but I was working with other people, and then I moved to Wales, and I lost contact with those people down south in England, and I was a little bit lost. And then it was very strange. I'm a teacher. I'm an English teacher, and in Wales, the children still have to learn the myths of the land. And I had to teach them about the mythological people, Rhiannon, Branwen, Blodeuwedd, and then Cerridwen. And as soon as I heard her story, I thought, there's something there. And it's true, she calls you. She really does.
Well, and I love hearing about your story because it's a reminder that it doesn't have to be this big thing that happens, this life-shattering event that happens, that we start developing this relationship with the goddess, and that it's just that calling. Because I think that sometimes we think something is bigger than, like, it has to be a big thing, a big deal before we're invited to work with her. So I love that it was just this easy transition.
Yeah, and it's really that. We already have a relationship. Many of us have already got a relationship with her, but we can't name it. It's in Wales we call something hiraeth. It's that longing to belong somewhere. And we're all children of the goddess, and she calls to us. And a lot of us now follow that call. A long time ago, you used to be considered a bit mad if you started talking about gods and goddesses. People would like, which part can we lock up? But now it's really accessible, and we're allowed to speak about her. It was only 1952 that they revoked the witchcraft laws here in the UK. So before that, if you spoke about something like that, you could actually be locked up. And into the 80s, people would still throw your windows in with stones if you proclaimed yourself to be a pagan. And even into the 90s, social workers would still take your children away in the UK if you said that you were a pagan or a goddess-loving woman. So it's only recently that we are allowed to speak so clearly and loudly about her. And in Avalon especially, of course.
So how did you venture to Avalon? Like, what was your journey to getting there?
I came to Avalon about 16 years ago. My children went to school not far from here, so we had a day outing, and I saw the tour, and we walked up the tour in absolute howling gale, soaked to the skin, stood on top and went, well, that's not very important, is it? And walked back down. But it was always a calling to go back. And I worked with Cerridwen with the Obot people. That's the Order of Bards, Ovids, and Druids here in the UK. I worked with them with the ADO, that's the Anglesey Druids Order, because Cerridwen is a Druid. And then I heard about these people here in Glastonbury that worked with Cerridwen, and it was like, oh, I've got to check that out. And went to the temple, same as you, at Cerridwen, and saw it all dark, and I went, I'm home here. This is great. I love it. So that was me. I fell in love, and that was about 8 years ago. And then I went to conference, Bamford conference, and that's a wonderful trip. Conference here in Glastonbury, the annual conference, is fantastic. And then there I decided to take the training.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. When I went to the temple, the goddess temple, and it was interesting because I went there and had a great experience. I felt that very welcoming home feeling. And then I was supposed to go to Ireland, and things just were not manifesting, or, things weren't lining up. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to stay. I was staying in Bath at the time, Bath, England. And so my hostess and I, we decided to return to Glastonbury and go back to the temple. And the experiences I had that time uh, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it because
Yeah.
when I was in there and I was in meditative state, I became Rhiannon, and I was seeing
Yeah.
through her eyes. And I looked down, and I was wearing the velvet green dress, and it was just it was
Mm.
a embodied state, and it was that moment that returned me back to my goddess path. It'd been calling me for, I'd say, 10 years, but
Mm-hmm.
I kind of got off track and was focusing on other things, and then that whole experience returned me back to the goddess.
Mm.
So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like I said, she calls you, and you can't ignore her. Rhiannon is another one, the Welsh girls. They're a little bit hench, as we call it in Wales. They're a bit stronger in emotion, and they hold on to you. If you're meant for them, they will be with you, and it's actually a really lovely feeling that you have that you're sort of part of their tribe. And Rhiannon is amazing, and when she's in the temple, it's always much fun because she's the goddess of love and sexuality and all of those wonderful things.
Yes.
So it gets a little fruity.
Oh, I bet.
Mm.
Yeah. So then tell us more about Cerridwen, because, like, what is her message? What's her primary medicine? What is she
Mm.
bringing to us?
Forgiveness, forgiveness of self. When we make mistakes, it's no point in wishing to go back into the past. We can't. There is no point in wishing things hadn't happened. All you can do is go back over it, learn your lessons from what you've done wrong, and then forgive yourself and ask for forgiveness from others. And if they don't want to forgive you, then that is their choice, that's their
Mm-hmm.
path. But you have to be authentic and truthful and say, look, I'm sorry, but I messed up. Because in the story, she, for all the best reasons, she creates a potion that is quite uh, against nature, so to speak. She is a witch. She works with nature, in harmony with the nature. And when she decides to bend the rules, that's when things go wrong. And eventually, the right person gets the potion, but she does poison the land with the rest of the potion and causes great harm. And so the lesson there is don't mess with nature. Nature has its own rhythm, has its own laws, and we have to live in harmony with that. That's another one. There's loads of messages in Cerridwen's story. I mean, she really is one of the most effective of all goddesses, I feel, for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's also about mother love, unconditional mother love. It's about love of a man, of a husband, who and the trust that comes with that. Long-term marriage, happy long-term marriage, and trust between two partners. It's a beautiful story. There's so much to it, and it's actually only half a page long, but every
Mm.
word means something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, very wise. And it's like, as you're talking about her, you can kind of settle in and feel that.
Mm,
And forgiveness is something that, oh my gosh, we have to really do on a consistent basis. It's not
mm.
like we can do it one time and then we're good. And I mean that's a tough one. It's like when
Mm.
we have to learn to forgive ourselves, like you say, ourselves and other
Mm.
people, um, that takes maturity within for us
It
to be
does,
able to
and
do that.
yeah, and we are often our worst critics, We
Oh
we
yeah.
do something and we go over it in our heads and it just balloons out of complete control and then we beat ourselves up and the little inner critic goes, "You're bad, you're really bad, and you're not worthy and you're not good enough." And we love doing that to ourselves. A bit of self-flagellation always comes in really good, and eventually you have to say to yourself, actually, I can't go back and unmake that. I can't change what I've done. All I can do is ask for forgiveness and try and make reparation. Offer restitution and say, look, I'm sorry that happened. I would like to offer you something in return. And it's then up to the person that you're speaking to and yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I love how compassionate that is. Bring,
Yes.
being compassionate with yourself and recognizing that you're doing your best in any given moment and
Yeah.
not, like you say, not beating yourself up over it.
Mm, mm, exactly. And compassion is the greatest thing in the world. Compassion, kindness, and being graceful. When somebody apologizes to us, then, we should be graceful and kind and remember that the next time it could be us that is on the wrong side of things.
Mm-hmm.
And, and forgiving people, if you continuously get upset about stuff, you only eat away at your own core. It makes you very sad and very angry. And one of the things in Cerridwen's story is her rage, where she tries and kills young Rhiannon, over the misunderstanding with the three drops. And she is actually determined to kill that child. So, for most of the Christian people who heard the story and wrote it down, she was pretty bad, bad
Mm-hmm.
news, bad
Mm-hmm.
girl.
Yeah,
That's why we call her the Dark Mother.
the Dark Mother. Now, is she celebrated at any particular time of the year?
Samhain.
Mm-hmm.
Because she is in the Celtic tradition, Samhain is the dark times of the year. It's the beginning of the new year, but it's sort of when everything goes to sleep. And she is the one that it holds a cauldron of death and rebirth, of renewal. So you dump all your stuff in there, let go of everything that is no longer of use to you, of service to you, and holds you back. And then you go to sleep for a bit. You stew a bit in her cauldron, and she boils you up proper, and then after you come back out and you're renewed, refreshed. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's no point dragging burdens from one year into the next.
Right.
It's better to let it go.
Well, isn't that
So
the
right
truth?
now,
Wow.
yeah, right now is the time to just, you're all clean now. What's new? What's coming?
Mm-hmm. And you can feel that in the natural cycle of the year, as
Of
as
course, yeah.
as yeah, as everything in nature goes to sleep, and then
Mm,
you do feel that freshness when the year turns. And
mm.
so I love how the goddesses work with the natural cycle and how it all. I mean, it's such a beautiful dance. Yeah.
Oh yes, definitely. And it's best for us to work with the wheel as well, because that's how we used to be. What we are now is so counter indicative of human cycle. All of that artificial light in the winter. We don't go to sleep. We are on our computers till 12 o'clock at night. We don't get the rest we're meant to get. And it's normally light goes down, you go to sleep. And it was
Mm-hmm.
for us to rest for the following year. And I think we should do that more often nowadays. Put the
Yes.
computer away.
It's so
So yeah,
true. Yes. Yeah. I mean, they've proven it that the light of the technology and the
yeah,
computers and the TVs do disrupt our sleep cycles. So,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's a huge piece of wisdom. I
Mm,
want to get back to the temple to talk more about that because that
of course.
is there's something very significant about the goddess temple. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we are the first goddess temple to open again after 2,500 years of not having the
Mm-hmm.
temple in the UK. And it is the first one that was open every day from 12 to 4, and it's completely staffed by volunteers. So people come from all over Britain, even, other countries to come and hold space there because we have students from all over the world and they do their stint when they're over for their training. Um, and we now are actually the first place that is allowed to marry you legally in the UK. And so before it was just the church, Christian church, and now it's us as well. We've got two beautiful registrars, Charlie and Dawn, and they are, always happy to receive people and get them spliced, and get them going. And it's such a beautiful ceremony that they do, and the temple always looks good.
Mm-hmm.
We dress it every 6 weeks in the colors of the new season. And so every time people come in, they're like, oh my God, it looks totally different. And you're like, yeah, it does actually. Um,
Well,
and I'm part of the temple
it has different feeling
feel.
too.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I think the most significant one is when you come out of the time of Cerridwen, which is all dark. and you walk through the veil and you sit down and it's completely quiet, completely dark. And then 6 weeks later at Yule, it's all white and silver and sparkly, and you're like, whoa, I've got to have my shades on. It's so bright in here. But it is that change, isn't it? And it's celebrating that change of the year. It's so significant. And then, the following for Bridie, we're white again with green. And so every season has its own set of altar decorations, its own set of colors. And it takes about 3 hours to take everything down and put everything back up. So it's hard work. It really is. It's not for the faint-hearted. The amount of pricks of pins and things like that I've had, but it's such a joy to see it, change over and get cleaned and looked after properly. So yeah, that's the work of the temple weavers and the temple melissas.
And the temple, what was the second?
The temple melissas. A melissa is one that serves the temple. She doesn't have to be a priestess, but most of us are. But so other people who are not priestesses are allowed to come and help out. And we have got quite a few volunteers that like to do that.
Yeah, I can see why. Yeah, definitely. So
it's great fun.
Yeah. So what makes one a priestess?
Hard work. 3 years of training. It's 3 years of training if you want to become a priestess of Avalon, which was our first training. It was devised by Kathy Jones. It's now taught by Luna Silver, and it's so you in that you learn all of the 8 goddesses and 9 goddesses with Nolava in the center. You learn all of their correspondences. So that takes a whole year because you go through the whole wheel. Second year, you're learning how to priestess. So you do rituals, ceremonies, embodiment, oracling, all of those things. And then in the third year, you build your relationship with the Lady of Avalon. So for a whole year, you just work with her, which is incredible. But it's, you write essays, you create ceremonies, you do all sorts of things. You raise, we have pop-up temples all over the UK. We had pop-up temple in Wales for quite a while, which is great. So the temple goes out into the community. The priestess travel down, we put it all up, people come, we do a ritual, and then we take it all back down again. Again, it's a lot of physical hard work, but it's great.
And you're saying that majority of that's all done by volunteers.
Priestesses and volunteers. We have some volunteers, but on the whole, there are full-time priestesses in Glastonbury, like myself, whose work is just to look after the temple, after the hall, after Goddess House. There is about 20 or so of us that are constantly present, and people come in and out as well. And then we have probably 4 or 5 melissas that come and help us for temple weave dressing. We have melissas who do the actual shifts in the temple. People come and they volunteer. There's no paid position as such. Nobody gets paid, unfortunately. I mean, no, let me rephrase that. I actually think it's a great thing not to get paid. It doesn't become about money then. You give, you serve for love.
Yeah. Well, that is, and part of our work, I mean, there is that devotion and being of service. Yeah. So I'm curious. I want to talk more about, because what you were saying about that this shift back to the goddess and being able to be public about it, that was really surprising to me when you're saying, so I would love to talk about how the goddess has really been in the past kind of minimized or put away, or, can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, historically speaking, if you look at people like Maria Gimbutas and people carried Christ, they're people that have done a lot of research and historical research about it. But basically, goddess was suppressed until probably 40 odd years ago, until people were allowed to come out again and openly say, I worship goddess. I don't believe, or I don't hold with Christianity. This is my faith. And it was very frowned upon. It still is. I mean, as you see, I've got my my moon, And my husband, when I had it done, he said to me, that's all okay for when you're in Glastonbury, but what if you go somewhere into Sainsbury's in London? People will think you're mad, and you will get reactions. And I have been refused service in restaurants and things, but also people have asked me and have been very open about it. It's all part of that being a priestess, you take the rough with the smooth.
Yes.
you know
Well, and yeah, you're definitely a way shower, and
mm,
taking that leadership role of holding that space, because holding the energy of a goddess is so powerful, and it requires a lot of one to do that
mm,
in integrity. I mean, there are a lot
mm.
of people out there, and not just in working with goddesses, in all arenas, that they kind of put themselves out there that this is who they are, but they're not necessarily in integrity in being able to hold what it is that they're bringing forth. Do you know what
Yeah,
I'm saying? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I say this to my students. They say to me, I want to be a priestess. I said, you do realize you're a priestess at all times. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
you're a priestess when you're in your robes and your cloak and everything, but you're also a priestess if you are going down to the supermarket and somebody rams a trolley in your back and it's a woman that's overworked with 3 kids, and you don't turn around and glow at them like a normal person might do. You're a priestess. You turn around and you give a gracious smile and offer to help with the kids or something. Being a priestess is not something that is in the clothing or is
Mm-hmm.
just at a time of ritual. Being a priestess is your complete life. You are always in your priestess self. You're gracious, you're kind, you're compassionate. And I'm not saying that there are not other people who are those things, but
Yeah.
it's a strength. It feeds you, it protects you, and you offer your love and your devotion.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we do
Mm-hmm.
to our community and our
Yes.
goddess.
Yes. Yes. It's a powerful path to step onto.
Mm, yeah. I always say to mine, it's not for the faint-hearted. And I mean,
No.
my lot in particular, not. No, especially mine in particular, not. Because mine are death and soul midwives in part.
Mm-hmm.
And we work in hospitals, in elderly care homes. And we're not necessarily walking around going, I am a priestess of this or that. We just serve quietly and with humility.
Mm-hmm.
We're just there to help.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really all that a priestess is.
Beautiful. So I'm
Mm.
wondering if, as we wrap up this part of the conversation, if there is a specific message or something that you're feeling called to share.
I just, just be kind to each other, be kind to animals. We, in the Druidhood, we call a love of all existences, and we believe that all is ensouled. So it's an animist view. Even the rock next to you has a soul. Try and be as kind as you can and as loving as you can in your presence in the world. And then, if everybody did that, pay forward every kindness that you receive. Don't expect something back all the time. When you give somebody something, don't expect return all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Pay forward some of the things, if you're given something, and just be a beautiful, kind presence in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Awesome.
And everybody can do that.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is something as human beings that we, I think, really need to be mindful of.
Mm.
That, and
Yeah.
also what really spoke to me is what we were talking about earlier about forgiveness, because
Mm.
I think that that is a powerful way for us to really be in integrity and be a soulful person in our life,
Mm.
is to
Yeah.
really, yeah, practice forgiveness for ourselves and others.
Yeah.
Yes,
Because we all come from the same place.
we do.
So we're all from source, we're all from the same place, we're all sisters and brothers to each other. And so, yeah, let's be nice
Mm-hmm.
to each other, let's be kind.
Yes, yes, yes. That's all I have to say. Yes. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay, so for members, we're going to continue this conversation, and we're going to deepen this conversation about Cerridwen, and maybe do a practical experience so we can feel into or embody, something that we've talked about today. So I look forward to continuing this conversation with you. And for those of you that are watching and listening, I would love to have you join us as a member, and that way you can experience this magical opportunity today. So thank you so much, Bea, for joining me.
You're very welcome.
This was such a beautiful conversation, and I've just been having chills the whole time, little goosebumps. And so it just reminds me that, it doesn't matter if we're thousands of miles away, we still are connected, time and space, Yeah. So thank you.
It's lovely. You're very welcome. It was lovely to be there.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Awakened Goddess Show. I hope you enjoyed today's guest and got something you can start using in your life right away. For more spiritual insights and to listen to more episodes, subscribe to The Awakened Goddess Show at theawakenedgoddess.com and discover wisdom that'll change your life.